Okay, so last video of the module, Future of Media Studies Part 2. I'm going to look a bit further in the future, perhaps, than what I looked at in the previous video. So discussions of reality, virtual or augmented, are one thing, but the integration of the body and media has far more potential for the digital media age. And really, this is the next horizon for the development of mediums, integrating the entirety of the body into media itself. And we call this kind of augmentation of the body itself with different mediums and technologies an aspect of transhumanism, overcoming the limitations of the human form by integrating with the digital and the computational. So it's a classical McLuhanist extension of man, but it has major implications for us as media scholars. Now, the concept of the cyborg has been around a long time, and there's been a lot of theory around it. Probably the most important theorist is Donna Haraway, who in 1985 wrote the Cyborg Manifesto. Rejects the rigid boundaries between human and machine, because we have always been augmented by machines, according to Donna Haraway, and it's a critique of the rigid thinking in cultural studies and feminism in particular. From a feminist perspective, I should argue, but it's really a critique of this rigid idea that we have always, that these things are new in some way, that they are going to alter us. Haraway uses a lot of good examples, but the great one that I love is this. Here's a machine. It's a very simple machine, and people like me have to use these in order to see. So I am augmented by a machine at all times. I am a cyborg. So therefore, we're on a continuum here. We have always been augmented by technologies in a particular way, and indeed McLuhan would agree with that in terms of things like clothing. Clothing's a technology, it's a medium which extends the skin in different ways. But transhumanism usually refers to something more radical than just a pair of spectacles or some clothes on us, because transhumanism has specific aims. So according to Nick Bostrom, the aim is to enhance human capabilities and extend the human lifespan, potentially to infinity. First question I ask is, should we do that? See, human life has meaning through having a limited lifespan. If we're going to be alive forever, what's the point of doing anything? It's only by the fact that we're going to die that we actually bother to try and achieve anything in the time that we have. If we have unlimited time, will we even achieve anything? And that is an ethical dimension of this. Plus, should we even be trying to do this? Because as we know, this will be open to some and not to others. Some people will die and some people will live forever. Does that sound like an equitable society? I don't know. And this is at the root of what transhumanism is all about. So you can see how problematic it is to begin with. So transhuman ethics are really, really interesting. Transhumanists view human life itself as a work in progress that can be remolded and changed. But critically, technologists don't ask ethical questions. It's like the inventors of the atomic bomb, right? They invented the atomic bomb, but should they have? Is it something we should do? We can even ask that question of Facebook, right? Zuckerberg made Facebook. Should he have done that? Have the benefits outweighed the costs in terms of privacy, in terms of surveillance, in terms of the effects on democracy? Debatable. So this modernist view of the human being, that we can be changed, we can be altered, we can be made perfect, we really need to ask, should we be doing that? And actually, these are questions which science and technologists don't ask very often. Some do, there are some notable examples of people who do, but on the whole, that kind of ethical dimension isn't taught in those disciplines, and it isn't really a consideration. They ask the question, can it be done, rather than should it be done? And in fact, this view of transhumanism, that the human being itself is something that can be remolded and changed to make more efficient and better, is exactly the viewpoint of totalitarian governments. Nazi Germany shared that view, that the human being could be made better. It was the basis of their eugenics program, which we usually think of in terms of mass extermination. And of course, we should think of it in those terms because it's horrific, and it was horrific. But eugenics has another side. Selective breeding in order to create a super race of human beings. That was a feature of the state of Nazi Germany. You know, it was a directive, it was an aim of that state. Is transhumanism much different to that? I don't know. I don't think so. You know, genuinely, I think it's a position where we're going to augment ourselves with media technologies to such extent that we become perfect. Well, some people won't be able to take the augmentation. Some people won't be suitable for them. Some people won't afford it. What happens to them in this? Do they just left to die off? Not reproduce because they're not perfect? That's a perfect eugenicist state, and it's a very, very dangerous position that we should be in if that's the case. So transhumanists believe that we will become post-human, we will become something beyond or after human. This, in their opinion, is better than life, as it is now, ignores the potential for widening social inequalities and the potential neglect of intrinsic human value or worth. You know, we're all worth something. You can't measure that worth in terms of money, in terms of any market exchange or market value. We are worth something as human beings. What the transhumanist movement says is that when we're post-human, that human worth that we have now will be changed into some other kind of value system based on the technology that we have. If we don't have any, we'll have a significantly reduced worth as a human being, even to the point at which we're not worth being alive anymore because we're not special in these terms. It's dark, no? Really dark. So, what does this mean in terms of media? The integration of the body and media means all activity can be tracked. The logic of digital media is to transform all natural phenomena into something which is computable anyway. That's how digital media works. It takes natural phenomena and transforms it into the digital with ones and zeros, which can be computed in different ways, and that's the underpinning of big data, data surveillance, etc. So the body itself will be made computational. This is the logical conclusion of big data, you know, that everything in the world, including us, will be computed, harvested, processed and sold. We will become part of the great data market. I'm not particularly comfortable with that, and maybe you need to think about whether you are too. From the great ethicists, we can already think, you know, Immanuel Kant in his deontological ethics wrote that you know, all human life has an intrinsic worth. Now, if we become post-human, we are submitting to a quantification of the value of being human. When we become post-human, I will be worth less than you guys. You know, if I become post-human when I'm older, intrinsically my body is going to be worth less than somebody who was younger than me, and therefore I am worth less as a human being. This is a violation of Kant's ethical imperative. This extends to who can afford to become post-human. And post-humanism is seen as a given, but the reality is that it will be unevenly distributed, and it will be, some people will be post-human and some won't. And therefore some life will become more valuable than other lives. And these are major ethical issues with how media is going, and you know, media is going to be at the core of that. Who can augment themselves with media devices? Who gets the top end stuff, and who gets the cheap knockoffs which break down? Oof. Dilemmas. In terms of existential ethics, how we exist as human beings, how are we going to learn anything when we're augmented? Surely we'll just download it. How are we ever going to forget anything? We'll have memories that last forever. Forgetting's really important. You know, we forget things that hurt us. We repress those memories. You know, or we change those memories into ways in which we can deal with them more, you know, easier. With this, we're going to have no chance to forget. Everything will be there for us for all times. A few episodes of Black Mirror have dealt with this kind of idea that you can never forget things, and it shows how desolate human life becomes when you don't have the ability to let things go. How are we ever going to fail? You know, it's really important in life that we get things wrong. I get things wrong every day. Victory is ostensibly empty. We learn lessons through defeat. Having a bad grade in your media degree at some point is not a bad thing as long as you learn from it. If you learn from it, it's actually a really good thing. You know, you shouldn't think you know, you have to be brilliant at everything. Obviously, you want to succeed at things, but you can learn lessons when you get things wrong. In an augmented future, we don't get anything wrong. I don't even think we're human beings at this point if we don't learn, if we don't forget, if we don't fail. Those are essentially parts of what it is to be human. So these are, you know, essential lessons for the leading of what we call an authentic existence will be lost Post-human will be not human as we understand it. It'll be radically different. No discipline, no regret, no loss, no learning. I don't think we're describing human beings at this point. So the future of our discipline is going to be about considering these issues. It means our discipline's got to be interdisciplinary with the likes of biology, chemistry, physics, but also philosophy and ethics. We've got to focus on new methods and what we focus on as a discipline. We've got to pay attention to what's going on. You might think I'm talking about the far, far future, but I'm not. The experiments that underpin this kind of technology are going on now. They're happening right now. We need to be attending to what is going on. We need to pay attention to how humanity is being augmented by different things. Social media and the creation of life, digital facial recognition, big data and surveillance, they are the foundational blocks of these systems. They are out in front of us now. We need to understand the trajectory of these things, because our very future as a species, human future, is media future. And I'll finish the entire module at this point with this message. Again, going back to something I said right at the beginning, media studies is the most essential subject to do. It's because the future of humanity is rooted in media studies and media as well. So it's not just the contemporary and reality itself, but what we become in the future is media. That was such an uplifting way to finish. Thanks, guys.